If you want to animate your logo to the beat of the music, then this tutorial will show you how. I'm Ash and I'm going to show you how to use keyframes and effects to create animation to your graphics in time with the beat of the music. So once we're in Illustrator, we want to set up our artboard to fit a YouTube video. So for me, that's 1080p. And all I've done is placed my artwork in the center. Now I plan to have a bit of text come in later once I'm in Premiere Pro. So I've left a bit of space. So for me, that's about center when I have the text running down the bottom. So the first thing we want to do is we want to duplicate our artboard. So by holding Control, Alt and P, that brings up our document setup. If it would like to work, there we go. And then we can go into Edit Artboard. Now by holding Shift and Alt whilst dragging, we can duplicate our artboard. So now we have a carbon copy, all positioned exactly the same. Now for my first layer, I'm going to delete the two elements that I want to animate later. So I'm going to delete that. And on this second artboard, I'm going to delete everything else, just leaving them two. So we have our two artboards. So now we just need to save our artwork. Now it's very important that we save these as PNGs, and it's very important that we do not have any backgrounds. So I'm going to delete our backgrounds. And then I'm going to select the artwork within that artboard. Come File, Export, Save for Web, and make sure you choose PNG. And then again here, just going to select some of the artwork on the artboard. File, Export, Save for Web, make sure it's a PNG, and we save. So once we're in Premiere Pro, we want to start a new sequence. File, New Sequence. And I have a preset for YouTube, which is should be set to 1080p. Now we're going to start importing our music and our graphics. So for me, I go New Bin and I do Audio, and then I do another New Bin and I do Graphics. So I'm going to right click Audio, Import, and I'm going to search for my music. And then in the graphics, I'm going to go File, Import, and I'm going to select the PNG graphics that we saved earlier, which was letters without logo, logo minus letters. So once we have our music and our graphics imported, we're going to start by just dragging our music onto our timeline. Now, I would recommend listening to the clip, and we just want to grab a section that you can animate to. So just listen for beats and interesting noises that you can apply some animation to. So once you've clipped the audio you want to use, we're going to start dragging our graphics into the timeline. So I'm going to grab the more solid shape first, and then the part I want to animate, I'm going to drag on top. And because we saved these as PNGs, together they make the solid artwork. So the next stage is to start finding the beats within the music, and we want to start positioning our graphics accordingly. So we are going to take our letters, the part we want to animate, and I'm just going to shorten that for a second. And then I'm going to duplicate by holding Alt and dragging. Now, the overall idea is that we're going to have the letters that are not animated. And then when the beat of the music comes in, the letters are going to be duplicated, but these letters are going to be animated. So for now, we're just going to find the beat of the music. So it's about there. So I was a little bit late, so I know it's just before where the timeline is. So it's about there. And I'm going to drag this here. So now we've found the beat that we want to animate to, and we've positioned our graphic correctly where the beat is. So now I'm going to animate this graphic by adding effects. So in the effects panel, we're going to go to wave. It's all the way down the bottom. It's wave warp to be more precise. And I'm going to drag this onto the section we want to animate. And you can already see the default animation. So as it stands, we should have a piece of graphic which has no animation, and then the same duplicated piece of graphic which has the wave warp effect applied to it. So if we was to play that back, it should have no animation. On that beat, an animation occurs. And we're just going to bring the bottom layer in so we can see what's happening. We're going to play that. So roughly on that beat, which is around about there, the graphic which has the effect applied to it kicks in, giving the illusion that on the beat the animation fires. So now all that's left to do for this section is find the second and the third beat. So we're going to repeat the process and just duplicate the layers and position them. So here we go. Now I'm going to drag the non-animated piece of graphic, hold Alt and drag. So we've duplicated the non-animated piece of graphic. And now it's time to find the second beat. So I'm just going to shorten this, and I'm going to duplicate the animated piece of graphic by dragging, holding Alt, and I'm going to listen to this music and then position our animated piece of graphic where the second beat is. So here we go. First beat, second beat. So again, I was late, but as long as my animated piece of graphic covers the beat, it's around there. I'm just going to pop this together, and I'm going to do the same again. So I'm going to grab both of these layers now, so the non-piece of animated graphic and the animated piece of graphic. I'm going to do the same, hold Alt, drag, so I have both of them, and I'm going to drag the non-piece of animated graphic, make it a bit smaller, and selecting my animated piece of graphic, I'm going to play the music and then position that on the third beat. So here we go. First beat, second beat, third beat. Found the beats of the music, and we have our animated graphics. What we're going to do is we're going to play around with some different effects. Just going to drag that there, nice and neat. So we're going to go to our first beat and our first animation, and as it stands we have the wave warp on it, and I think we're just going to play around with the settings just to see what you can get from this effect. First thing, I'm going to increase the height. You can already see what that kind of does, and the width, you can adjust this settings however you wish. So let's just have a little look at what that did. Much bigger. Okay, let's take the second animation, and this time we're actually going to deselect that effect. So we just click the FX, so that cancels that, and we're going to go into effects and we're going to try something different. We're going to go into the distort, so video effects, I think, distort, And we're gonna go with a twirl on this one. So I'm gonna drag the twirl effect onto our second animation graphic, and we have our twirl settings. I'm just going to start twiddling around with the buttons. So here's what the twirl does. It increases and spins. So you can already see what kind of animation that can create. So for this, I think we're going to use keyframes. So I'm going to drag our timeline to the start of the graphic, and I'm just going to set this back to 0. And the idea is that we want it to twirl and then twirl back into position. So I'm going to add a keyframe, so the angle is set to 0 and we are aligned at the very start of the graphic. We're going to create a keyframe which is saying the angle. So as it stands, it's non-angled, there's no movement. And then I want to drag our timeline about in the middle, around there. And then here I'm going to add the maximum amount of angle, the effect. So let's just really go crazy on it. Make it spin to about there. It's already added the keyframe. And then I'm going to drag our timeline to the end of the image, and we're going to pop this back to 0. And there's our keyframe. So what we have is a keyframe of 0 angle. In the center of the image, we have increased the angle significantly. And then at the end of the image, we have decreased the angle back to 0. And you can kind of see the effect that we have there. So let's just play that. We have our beat, one animation, our second beat. So we're going to come to our third animation, and again we're going to deselect the wave warp, and this time we're going to go to this animation that I cannot pronounce correctly, so I'm not going to try. And we're going to make sure our timeline is in the center of the image, and we're just going to twiddle some buttons, and you can see what kind of effect that creates. We're going to do exactly the same as we did on the last one. So in the center of the image, we're going to have the maximum amount of effect applied. So I'm going to click the keyframe, and I'm going to drag our timeline to the end of the image, and we're going to bring this back to 0. Keyframe has been added, and I'm going to go back to the start of the image, and we're going to pop this back to 0, and the keyframe has been entered, 0 again. So once again, you're going to get bored of this soon, but we're going to play. And that's the end of the first tutorial. Thanks for watching till the end. On the screen is the second part of the tutorial, where we will be adding glitch and distortion effects to the start of the sequence. Thanks for watching. See you on the next one.